Onassis Foundation. Dublab.
Welcome to the Quarantine Tapes, a daily podcast from Onassis, LA and Dublab. Hosted by Paul Holdengraber, this series chronicles shifting paradigms in the era of social distancing.
Greetings. This is Paul Holdengraber, your host for the Quarantine Tapes, brought to you by Onassis, LA and Dublab. I am thrilled to announce that we have asked various former Quarantine Tape guests to host during a week guests of their choice in total freedom. They have absolute carte blanche. This week, I have asked the very great poet Naomi Shihab Nye to guest host. I hope you will enjoy these Quarantine Tapes.
Hello.
Hello, is this Harryette?
Oh, yes. Is this Naomi?
Yes, I'm so thrilled you have agreed to be with us on the Quarantine Tape series today. Thank you so much for taking the time, Harryette.
Pleasure.
It is an honor to talk to you. Could you describe to us first where you are speaking to us from physically?
I'm speaking to you from my seat by the window in my house in Los Angeles.
And is it beautiful today?
It is gorgeous. I just took a long walk through my neighborhood. The sky is blue. The sun is shining. It's warm. It's beautiful.
Well, that would connect to your opening by reading possibly a few poems from Urban Tumbleweed, which is a book born of walking, right?
Yes, walking in Los Angeles, which, is actually not advised by many people, but I do it anyway.
And you're a connoisseur of doing it.
It's another way to enjoy the city. It's another way to see, all these people that we live together with. And, it's just another way of knowing your place in the world.
Has that habit served you well during the quarantine, I would imagine?
Well, definitely, because so much of my work involves just staring at a screen, whether I'm reading or writing or, having my class on Zoom. So everything is sitting in a chair and looking at a screen. So I have to get up and walk, or else my body would just not move at all. I'd be frozen like a petrified piece of wood.
But that love for walking actually led you to this whole amazing book, right?
This book, I decided I would try to write one Tonka verse per day.
And tell everyone what a Tonka is in case they don't know.
A Tonka is traditional Japanese poem, although mine are not so traditional. Traditionally, it is poem of 31 syllables. It's like a haiku plus a couple more lines, another 14 syllables. So if a haiku is a line of 5 syllables followed by 7, then 5, then you have another 2 lines of 7 syllables to make a Tonka. So Tonka in English looks like 5 lines. Mine are 3 lines. So I've really messed with the form quite a bit, but I tried to stick more or less to 31 syllables. And you just write, it's like a little snapshot of your day. So when I'm walking, I'm trying to keep my eyes open and my ears open and my mind open. Open, but not in that kind of shut out, zombie way that sometimes we walk through the world. To be open and observant, and then to look for the poem in my walk. I'm walking, looking for the poem to meet me somewhere along my walk. And sometimes it does, or sometimes I just have to pretend that it did. But
but you made a ritual of doing this, like did it every day.
I did it every day for a year. Actually, I did it for longer than a year, so I would have a few extras and I could cut. And I ended up with, because I put 3 on a page, so everything was multiples of 3, 3 lines, 3 stanzas, or 3 verses. And it ended up being 366 pages, which is like a leap year of Tonka.
Wow, beautiful. Would you share a few with us?
Oh, sure, yes. Okay, so I'll read 3 of them right now.
Okay.
Hiking up Topanga Canyon Trail, we spoke of bobcats, coyotes, and rattlesnakes, but only harmless lizards crossed our path. From a distance, wrecked cars on the freeway are crumpled toys, the helicopter circling up above, a curious dragonfly. Urban Tumbleweed, some people call it, discarded plastic bag we see in every city, blown down the street with vagrant wind.
Mm.
So that last one was the title verse, the Urban Tumbleweed. Because some people are very familiar with that. That's a slang term or colloquial term for trash on the street.
Wow. Well,
I know you write about trash on the street too.
I've always been, feeling some kind of responsibility with trash on the street, and I have such a fondness for this book of yours, and I can only imagine you've just felt how the book could keep going and going and going every other walk you take. Could you describe how the quarantine months, the stay-at-home, shelter-in-place, whatever we call them, how have those months been for you? What has changed for you in your life?
Well, in some ways, it's very similar to how I normally live because I tend to be a little bit socially distant. I tend to be a little bit of a hermit myself, but what's changed is that I don't have those opportunities to break out of my shell because I usually depend on events and duties and friends and family and students and colleagues to pull me out of my shell. And that's something that's been missing is that I've just been kind of in my shell. And, these electronic means, they're all we have. So I do participate, but like I have to teach on screens, my students at UCLA, and that's the only way I can see them, so.
And it's interesting to me to contemplate this, Harryette, because you've been someone who's always been a little skeptical about being too connected, right? I mean,
I have not had a Wi-Fi connection in my home until now.
Really?
I did it because how could I teach otherwise? I was, when we start getting locked down, I was driving to the campus, and we have outdoor picnic tables with electric outlets, and I would sit at one of those picnic tables and teach my class on the campus. My students are at home, and I'm on the campus at a picnic table outdoors on the campus. And they would try to guess where I was on the campus. They said, "You look like you're close to the library. Is that where you are?" And I say, "Oh, yeah, you guessed right."
I bet it kind of comforted them that at least one of you was on the campus. If they couldn't be, at least you were. That must have been a little bit of a heartening feeling, like we're not completely separated from our place where we go to learn. How are your students doing? How do you feel they're faring through this strange time?
It is very stressful for them. And, here in Los Angeles, we have students from so many different backgrounds, and it's hard for some of them. I have a student who has an infant, and that, she has to sometimes turn off her screen because she may be nursing her baby, or turn off her sound because the baby might be making noise. So, you see, this is so weird and creepy that we have a window into everyone's home. And you see, the roommate walking by wearing underwear. You see the pets pouncing on the students while they're trying to concentrate. It's that intimate, but at the same time so distant and remote that it's creepy.
Do they talk about how difficult it is for them? I mean, I have felt very privileged to be older. I don't know the best way to say that, but I think it would be harder to be really young during this period.
I think it is very hard because these are their years when they are supposed to be socializing. They're supposed to be separating from their family of origin, getting a little distance and independence. And then they do that by bonding with their peers. And part of their education is, late night talks in the dorm or going out for pizza with your buds. A writing group, a study group, extracurricular activities, sports, all of that they're missing.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel for them because we enjoyed all of those things, we had those opportunities, and they are missing it. They're missing, what should be very joyful years, in their lives.
May I read you something you wrote that I love, and every single word in this passage connects to the quarantine for me. See if you recognize it. Lines assemble gutter and margin, outside and in. They straighten a place, organize a stand, shelve space, square footage, align your list or listlessness. Oh, I just love that, Harryette.
That's being in the supermarket. Which is the only place that I go now. About every other week I have to go stock up and be very careful.
Yes, and be very careful and try to go at the hours when no one
I go there. When almost nobody else is there.
Yeah, same with me. Align your list or listlessness. I have found myself holding your lines or phrases just as kinds of little motto flags in my mind. Has the quarantine given you any new mottos or favorite words that you've found yourself thinking of a lot or hovering around?
Wow.
I mean, you're the word person of greatest majesty. Of all the many, many poets, there's something in your relationship with words and mottos. Well, we can come back to that too. I know it's hard to be put on the spot with something like that, but I'll just say this. You started as a more narrative poet, and I feel lucky to be able to say I knew you then. And then you leaned more into a realm of like dazzling language wonderment. Some people call it language poetry, contextual mixtures, examinations of language in a way that was extremely playful but serious at once. And I wonder if the quarantine season has echoed your writing journey in some ways. Like, our narratives have been shaken. They're all thrown up into the air. No, you can't do that. You can't go over there today. No, you can't. I just wonder if you have felt these days as a different kind of poem than the more traditional narrative poem, which you wrote so exquisitely as well, I must say.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying. I was just thinking about some of your work, and I love the idea in the poem that that includes the trash walk with your son when he was younger, and he made a story out of the trash. I love that. I think I do that sometimes, think about who threw the trash. When you said your trash tells a story about who you are.
Yeah. And he did that even much more than I did. I mean, I think children have that aptitude to connect these little random details, even more than we do sometimes. But you have been one who's never afraid to experiment, to try something new with your language. And rereading this beautiful pile of your books I have, I've just been so dazzled and made happier just to travel with you through language. What do you say to students or to anyone who's afraid of trying something new?
Why not? I mean, if you do something new that is safe, that's not going to hurt you or anyone else, why not?
Yeah.
Just try it. See what happens.
Yeah. Well, what happens to people that causes them to hold back from doing that?
I think people fear that other people won't understand them. They fear that other people are going to somehow make fun of them or ridicule them or demean them. I mean, I think there's a lot of judgment, particularly with social media, which I'm not really participating in, but I know that my students are, especially now, even more so, in this world of social media, which can be very judgmental, the idea of the crowd. And the idea that you have hundreds or thousands of friends that you've never met, but you care if they all say that what you said was not important or not interesting or it was stupid or whatever. And people are so quick with those kinds of instant reactions, that to just immediately say, this is dumb or I hate that, I think that can be very intimidating for some people.
Yes. And to get past that, sometimes it only takes like a little bit of time to get past that. But other times you may be so anxious about it that it's harder to keep attempting experimental acts. People who write to me and say, should I, try to do some writing? I always say what you just said. Well, why not? I mean, what do you have to lose? I used to love the quote advice Jack Kerouac gave about writing. When someone would ask him, what's your best advice? He would say, rest and be kind. You don't have to prove anything.
Oh, yes. That's wonderful. Yeah. You really don't have to prove anything. And also, I tell people, write for yourself. You're your first audience. You can write and say, if I don't like it, I can tear it up. I can throw it away. I don't have to keep it. I don't have to publish it. I don't have to show it to anyone. Just write for yourself. See how that feels. You might want to take it to another step later. Emily Dickinson barely published anything in her whole lifetime. But I'm glad she wrote. I'm glad she put her little fascicles together in her little hope chest so that her relatives could get it out into the world,
Yeah. What course have you actually been teaching or courses during these months?
Well, at the beginning of our lockdown, I was teaching a creative writing poetry workshop. Those students, a couple of them I knew from a previous class I taught in person, but the rest of them were all new to me. I know them only in their screen personae. And and then now I'm teaching contemporary American poetry. And what's the other one? Oh, yes. I decided to teach we have this category called individual author. So you just, study the works of a particular person. So I decided to teach a course on Ntozake Shange. She just died a couple of years ago. Yes. And, she is known as a playwright, but she's really a poet. And she called her plays or her theater works choreo poems, which I think is a very apt description, this word that she coined, I think. So we're reading for colored girls. We're reading her novel, Sassafras, Cypress, and Indigo, and her cookbook. It's called If I Can Cook, You Know God Can. I love that title. And then there's another essay collection that's called Lost in Language and Sound. We're reading 5 of her books. And we also gave them a poem sampler from a new and collected. It's called Wild Beauty. So, and we're reading her collection called Nappy Edges. That's a poetry collection. So so we've had really interesting discussions about her because she's so interesting and in a certain way difficult, in a certain way difficult because she confronts a lot of very difficult emotions. I mean, I actually had to write into my syllabus, we're going to encounter words that we might not want to hear. And so certain words, when we talk on Zoom, especially since we don't know who's listening, I'll say, well, if there's a word in the text you don't want to say, like there's a certain word that starts with an N that she uses quite a bit, and I say, when I see this word, I just substitute human being.
Great suggestion. Yes.
And we see the page, so we know what's there, but we hear something different.
Harryette, your power as a poet to transform and as a truly great teacher, so devoted all these years to so many lucky students. I want to tell you that some 35 maybe years ago, I probably read two of your earlier poems, Eyes in the Back of Her Head and Mama Sayings, to at least 100,000 students, maybe more, because those used to be two poems I practically carried in every pocket. I needed them in any classroom. I always knew they would take us to a good place. And the Eyes in the Back of Her Head poem ends with the line, eyes that see where you're going, where I've been. The mama speaking to the daughter. And those are lines that have been coming back to me. It's been very interesting during so much quiet time and solitude to hear lines just coming out of our own memories, our own reading, that serve us in some way, like they're a raft or they're an oar. How do we get through the next hour? But these lines keep coming back to me, thinking about our country. Where are we going? Where have we been?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we now? Could you discuss anything about how your poet self sees the trajectories of our nation at this moment? It's such a tenuous, tender moment.
Yes, it is, because we have been through, I think, punishing times, very severe, harsh, punishing times. And we've had a madman at the helm, and that's been very destructive. I think we need to do a lot of repair work individually and collectively. I think we need to conscientiously think about what we can do, each one of us, to repair what has been, what has been torn asunder and trampled upon, our norms of, our democratic process. I mean, just so many things that we thought were safe, we see now, and we have to, even guard against the next one who may be an even more competent tyrant, who will, see what the possibilities are, for slipping through the loopholes. So we need to maybe think about, as a country and individually, what can we do to safeguard those things that keep us free and that keep us healthy and that keep us strong. And we need to include more people. Part of the problem is so many people feel excluded. They feel resentful. They feel envious of others. They don't have enough for themselves. And so if there were, when we have, so much wealth that is concentrated in so few hands, that is a bomb ready to explode.
Yes. It's so surprising how these things have unfolded before our eyes, and many of us have felt almost, we've just been floundering. How do we respond? What do we say? Where do we say it? And certainly, since you're an educator, a lifelong educator from a family of educators, I would say that those of us in the world of education can at least feel good that we're making real human contact, and hopefully it's humanizing.
Yes.
In each regard, whether we're teaching poetry or history or human rights or geography or anything. But I think as poets, we have a particular, a luckiness that the topics which come up, like talking about Shange right now, seems very important. The topics which come up are ones that are at the heart of some of the issues that we're still dealing with.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Harryette, do you still have ties? You've been a Californian for a long time, but Do you have fond thoughts about Alabama or Texas, other places you've lived?
When I think of Texas, I think of you.
Oh, thanks.
I sometimes think I would like to return to Texas. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, since now all of rest of my family's living in North Carolina.
Yeah.
But
we've always dreamed you'd come back here.
Yes, and Alabama, I don't think I would live there, but I have visited Alabama, and I'm doing my ongoing forever family history project. And I found some distant cousins. We figured out that we have great grandfathers who were brothers.
Wow.
So these people who grew up in Ohio that I found, their great-great-grandfather is the older brother of my great-great-grandfather. And we have a picture of 10 children, 10 adult people who are the children of a former Confederate soldier who was a German Irish-American, wow, and a woman who was their family's slave. But by the time these two people got together, the Civil War was ended, so she was free when they had their first child. They ended up having 10 who survived to adulthood, and these people, these cousins, their ancestor is standing next to my ancestor on the porch of their home. We have this picture of these 10 people, and my ancestor standing right next to their ancestor in this picture. So we trace back to them. We've been talking about that.
What a trove.
Yes. I mean, can you imagine that, this guy went and fought for slavery, and then he came home and had 10 children with Sally. She had belonged to his grandfather. She was his grandfather's property. And these people probably grew up, together as kids. As children, they grew up together. He fought the war. Yeah, he's following his older brothers into the war. He was the youngest one. And he comes back and has 10 children with Sally. Amazing.
Well, did you not know about all these people, before now? I mean, was this as a recent discovery?
I knew about that, and they were never legally married because it was not, they couldn't do that the law wouldn't allow them to marry, but they were together for 10 children, and he had never had a legal wife. So I have known something about them, but now finding these other people who are descended from them, they have their own story about growing up in Ohio with their Mullen ancestor, right? So I've been learning some other things about Alabama, a little bit more about Alabama from them.
The wonders of connection, keeping us bonded, even though we're in heavy solitude. And I just want to close by saying, before you close us with a poem, if you would grace us with one more poem or a couple more short poems. Your book, Sleeping with the Dictionary, which is on top 5 poem lists of so many people I've known in my life ever since it came out. Favorite book. It has come into my mind so many times because we've all been sleeping with our books, sleeping with our papers, sleeping with the iPad, falling asleep, drifting on podcasts and music. And I just think that book is so brilliant. Having read it many, many times, I want to thank you again for it, because you gave us not only a gift of terrific reading for the moment, but just a concept of staying close to language, that it's with us in our sleep, our unconscious lives, our dream worlds, as well as our waking. And Harryette, talking to you is always like a good dream for me. So thank you for being with us on the Quarantine Tapes. Please read another poem to us.
Okay, well, thank you for all of your books. And I just wanted to say, when I read, the little Tonka about hiking up to Canyon Trail, and you were just talking about mamas, I did that walk with your mother.
Well, my mother still talks about walking with you in Los Angeles. That's beautiful. I didn't realize that.
Yes, I think of her now whenever I do that same hike.
Well, she's 93, going strong, and would love to go to a restaurant, especially with you. So please read us What is
Okay,
your
I'll read a few more of the
Okay.
Tonka verses
Okay.
from Urban Tumbleweed.
And thank you so much, Harryette Mullen, for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much, Naomi. Okay. I leave traces of ink on paper. Others can't resist spray painting a boulder or carving their initials in the skin of a tree. Native or not, you're welcome in our gardens. Lavender's dress is not so vibrant as your green trousers and purple velour sleeves. Don't need picket fences, brick wall, or razor wire. Our home's protected by prickly pear cactus and thorny bougainvillea. On a breath of air, they may last longer and travel farther than we know. Our folded paper boats and origami airplanes. So that was a bit of Urban
Thank you,
Tumbleweed.
Harryette Mullen. May your home always be protected.
Oh, I wish the same for you.
Thank
you,
you.
Naomi. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
My honor.
To support this show and Dublab's progressive programming, go to dublab.com/support.